what she said. All right.
We got,
That was a good one. I heard that.
we got Mark,
That was a good one.
Mark Romano's up there. emceeing the event. You're on.
Am I on? Okay, we have upon us the last speaker of the day. And as soon as he is done, we're going to go right into a open session to where we'll have all the speakers up front with Jim Healy. And that would be a very open time to ask questions, to elaborate on certain ideas. But before we get to that, I would like to introduce the godfather of chiropractic. This is a guy that I truly love. I would consider him the highest form or patriarch of an unsung hero that you could ever imagine. Now, I've seen this guy stick with the cause when he was the only one doing it. When there was Sherman College, and then there was the FSCO, and even when the people like Reggie said, I'm done, I'm going to spinology and trying something different, Joe stuck it out. He had knives thrown at him, he had all kinds of adversity that you won't ever hear about because he's never going to talk about it. If it wasn't for him, I truly question not only this organization, but the understanding of this movement. There is a genius to the way that he speaks, and you can tell the genius by the simplicity in which he comes across. There is nobody that exemplifies the qualities of leadership, rectitude, and veracity like this person. I have to take the credit for the nickname of the Godfather because that's what I consider him in this profession more than anybody else. And we are truly in the presence, in my opinion, of one of the greatest chiropractors, if not the greatest, on the face of the planet today. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Godfather of chiropractic, Joe D'Onofrio.
Okay, whole computer, Facebook, PowerPoint presentation thing is done. There will be no more of that. This is my PowerPoint. I left the cover page on because I wanted you to admire my granddaughter's artwork. Is it on? On. On. Thank you. I wanted you to admire my granddaughter's artwork. She told me to be sure to let you see it. Oh, I thought I could screw this. I like to. I have to, because I like to make people angry. I like to start off talking about what is chiropractic. We spent a whole freaking day here, everybody's talking about chiropractic. And in this group, it's fairly congruent and consistent. But how many times have you been in a thing where talk chiropractic, it means so many different things to so many different people? I met a guy, 10, 15 years ago, and I was giving a talk in a chiropractic organization type meeting like this. And he came up to me and said, I'd like to have lunch with you so we can talk. He says, I'm a straight chiropractor too. Okay, I'd never seen him before, but hey, there are lots of straights out there I've never met. So we're having lunch, and he starts talking a little bit, and he says some things that are unusual for a straight chiropractor to be talking about. And I said, you said you were a straight chiropractor. How do you define straight chiropractic? He said, well, I do exactly what you do. I said, you do? I said, what do you think I do? He said, you examine the spine, you find subluxations, and you correct them. Yeah, I do that. I said, but you said this, and you said this, and you said this. He says, oh, well, when that's done, then I do a little hair analysis, and I use these ortho support things, and I do some nutrition, and homeopathic medicine can be very, very helpful, He goes through this whole list. I think it's good for every organization when they have a seminar like this to somewhere in the thing define what chiropractic is. The way I like to define chiropractic is to start with the universe of chiropractic. And I defined what the universe of chiropractic is. It is the correction of vertebral subluxation to allow better expression of innate intelligence or coordination. Correcting the cause of diseases and getting sick people well and keeping well people well. And mitigating the symptoms using any natural therapy and/or any therapy allowed by the law. Now, any chiropractor you've ever met can fit into this definition. What makes a difference, then, is where you put the period. Here at the Trust, because I insisted on having it that way, Romano didn't want to do that. We define chiropractic as the correction of vertebral subluxation to allow a better expression of innate intelligence and coordination. Period. That's where we put the period. Right, Marky?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now, there are others that add to that, saying, correcting the cause of diseases and getting sick people well and keeping well people well. I hear that a lot from life grads. I hear that a lot from, DE people. Sorry. I hear that a lot from New Beginnings people. Sorry. I know these are really your friends. I understand. And both of those seminars are some of the best fraternity parties I've ever been to. I notice most of you attend without your wives. Huh? We know what's going on. They're fun. But they do define chiropractic a little bit differently than we do, for the most part. I'm not saying don't go. What I'm saying is be aware of where you are. Because when they say chiropractic, they mean something different. They put their period here. And then the rest of the chiropractors, the vast majority of us, as it turns out, say, and mitigating the symptoms with any natural therapy. See, those are the ones who think they're really good chiropractors. They only use natural therapies. And/or any other therapy allowed by law. Those are the ones that are using the laser thingies, and the DRX 9000. Now, when you look at this, they put their period here. When you look at this, you say, okay, these are the straight guys. I identified them right away. And down here, these are the Mexer guys. I identified them right away. You know who does chiropractic the greatest injustice? The folks in the middle. They're the ones who muddy the waters. You know what? So far as these Mexicans are concerned, I hope to hell that when I develop terminal cancer, and I pray I do soon, that there is some natural guy somewhere, chiropractor, who will give me a discount on my treatment, because I'm a professional. It is professional. I hope that some chiropractor developed some natural therapy that works. Because this chemo and radiation therapy don't look so hot. Hey, why not? So I don't have an argument with them. They're okay. I'm upset that they call themselves chiropractors. I prefer they call themselves something else. But that's another story. It's the folks in the middle here that create all the problems, that muddy the waters. Because you know what they call themselves? Just ask them. They'd never say, yeah, I'm a mixer, but I'm a by-hand only mixer. What they say is, I'm a straight. What kind of straight are you talking about? That's what BJ said. Yeah, probably is. But then BJ said an awful lot of things. BJ can be used to support mixing too. You just choose to listen to only certain sections that you pull out of the green books or out of the Stevensons. So for us here today, chiropractic is the correction of vertebral subluxation to allow a better expression of innate intelligence coordination. Period. That's what we stand for. We decided when we formed this organization that standing for that was far more important than any person, far more important than anything. It unto itself is critical to the future of humanity. Because when folks walk around with VS, they suffer needlessly and die sooner than they have to. That doesn't have to happen. All we have to do is reach, well, in America, another 300 million. We've probably got 10 million, but we need another 300 million. We need to get through. And we're working at it. Mike Duncan's halfway there.
Sounds way.
What is chiropractic? Important concept. What I really came to talk to you today about is my favorite topic. The orientation is the most important thing we do. You've all heard that if you've been on Facebook. It is the most important thing we do, but nothing as easy as you think. Before I go into that, however, I'll tell you a little story. There's a book that was actually on the New York Times bestseller list, and the name escapes me, and I've tried to look it up, and I haven't been successful in finding it. But it's there somewhere, and if you Google it enough times, you'll probably come up with it. A hospice nurse, a lady who takes care of people in their dying hours. Been a hospice nurse for 35 years. I believe it was in Pennsylvania, but I may be mistaken. And she wrote a very interesting book about people's last days and what they experienced and what her emotions were and how she helped them through those last days. And it's really a small book on dying, and on dying with some kind of dignity and decency. And somewhere in that book, she listed the 10 most common things that people regretted on their last days of life. Now, if we guessed at it, you'd probably say, well, certainly one of them was, I should have worked more. You should have worked less. One of them must have been, I should have spent more time with my wife and my family and my kids. Yeah, that was in there. There are a lot of things that you might imagine would be in there, common things. But you know what was number one? Number one was, I wished I had done what I wanted to do for myself, rather than doing what I thought other people wanted me to do. The one major mistake we make is not being true to ourselves. Dr. Seuss said, be who you are and say what you mean. Those who matter don't care, and those who care don't matter. Be true to yourself. That's what we're about. That's what the trust is about. Find the truth and stay true to it. The orientation is the most important thing we do. Why? Well, The obvious reason. Because an educated patient stays longer, pays you more money, and you make more money. That's a reason. They give you less sores, less problems. They don't bother you. They don't argue with you. They understand why they're there. Very good reason. That's the most obvious reason. But I always thought that there were more reasons than that. My lecture, my orientation, and most of the words that I've seen is made up of sound bites, I would call them. Just quick answers to the million questions that every chiropractor has ever answered. A really good orientation is composed of every question that's ever been asked of any chiropractor since the beginning of time, and its answer. But by having all those answers cataloged in your head, because you give this sucker 3 times a week, or 5 or 8 times a week, by having it all cataloged in your head, when you run into somebody at the supermarket and they say, "What do you guys do?" "Well, we correct variable subluxation. There's a misalignments in your spine, and they cause you to not have a properly functioning body." That all came out of your orientation. That's part of what you said. I understand you people treat children. Why? Why would a kid need what you sell? Because chiropractic's not about backaches and stiff necks. Chiropractic's about living longer and living better. And children, most of all, need to live longer and live better. Huh? So it creates for us the sound bites, which we then use for answers. It creates what used to be marketing before you came along. When I was a youngster, we used to do marketing. Marketing was getting in touch with every fraternal organization in your town and telling them you're available to speak to their group. Not only are you available, you'll pay them to speak to their group. Now, when you go in there to speak, what do you do? Create an orientation, a special lecture for them? Ah, you bring your orientation because it works, doesn't it? It takes people, total strangers that you've never met before, and turns them into lifetime chiropractic patients. So you go in there and you give them your orientation. I used to leave off the GPC part because I would keep that. That's, for me, GPC is that's the box on the wall for those of you uninitiated. GPC is the icing on the cake. It's not the cake. I don't want them coming because they think I'm cheap. I want them coming because they understand why I did that. So I say something like, when I'm done with my orientation, we'll go into this later. If all this about your life and your well-being and your body's normal function is true, and the vertebral subluxation inhibits all that, how do I set a fee on fixing it? What's that worth? $22? $37.50? What's the magic number? Obviously, I can't set a fee on fixing it. So we had to create a fee system that would allow all people to receive care. That would allow a husband, wife, and 6 kids to get into regular chiropractic care for the rest of their lives throughout all the ups and downs that they go through. You know why that went so fast? Because it's part of my lecture. And I've given that freaking lecture so many times. But that's one of the benefits of having an orientation lecture. You are ready for any question asked because your lecture is a compilation of every question that's ever been asked and the answer. You've got the answer. You no longer need to fear anything. And you don't have to think. It just pops into your head. Because you give this thing 2-3 times a week. The third thing having an orientation does, for me especially, because I'm bad this way, I'm intrinsically a lazy guy. You can tell by the way I look that I go to the gym twice a week, right? I'm a lazy guy. And when I put my hand on that door to go into the room where I'm giving my orientation, I don't want to go in there. I am so sick of saying this freaking orientation for 35, 45, 47 years, whatever it is. I don't want to go in that room. The gall rises up in my throat, and I throw open the back of my throat a little bit, and I put my hand on the door, and I go in and I smile. You don't smile enough. I smile. Your wife called to me, tell you that. And I smile and I say, "Ha! The reason we brought you here is we got to talk about how you can live longer and live better, and improve the quality and the quantity of your life." And as it unfolds, and as I say those magic words, by the end of the night, I am so high. You know, I gave up heroin. I didn't need it anymore. I am so hot. I am so buzzed. Here's the problem. I finish my office hour. My orientation lecture starts at 8:30. Usually finishes up 9:30, quarter to 10. We practice in a bedroom community for New York City. So a lot of people are just getting off the bus at 8 o'clock at night. So we tend to work late up in the northern part of the state. The southern part of the state, they're all asleep by then. In the northern part of the state, we work late. And I come out of the office, it's now like 10 o'clock at night by the time I turn all the lights off, and empty the boxes and put the money into the wheelbarrow. You'll never know. But those who have tried it know. Anyway. And I get in the house and I am just so keyed up. I need to call somebody and tell them about chiropractic. You know, but who am I going to call it to? Well, I'm not going to call anybody. So I try and calm down. I try and sit down. Call Mark?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Okay. You already, I'm not saving your life. That's just,
Okay.
nah. I try not to call him. Anyway. And it takes me 3 hours to calm down enough to go to bed. So I come out here at 10, it's maybe 1, 2 a.m. before I can actually go to bed. But you know what it does? Every week I do it. It recommits me. It reminds me of what the hell I'm there for. And that, I believe, is the biggest single important thing that an orientation does. And that's why you got to do it. In some way, shape, or form. And God, there's a million different ways to do it. I'm not saying mine's the only one, although it's pretty good. And if you were smart, you'd mimic me. But some of you are not smart. I insist on cutting through and making your own roads. Go right ahead. It's okay. You'll see. One day you'll learn. 10 years, 20 years from now, you'll come around and say, you know, that Donofrio guy, he's dead now, but he was right. The types of an orientation, the kinds of an orientation. Now, I've always had a lot of fun in chiropractic. I love my practice. I love being in the office. I love taking care of the folks that I take care of. I just love it. You know, it's just great stuff. And I always use my practice as a laboratory to try things out. Because I noticed no matter what I did, people kept coming in. And I thought, this is crazy. But if they're crazy enough to keep on coming, let me try some shit and see how it works. That's how I gave up appointments. I was the first guy to do that. You gotta have appointments. If they don't commit to an appointment, they're not gonna come. Yeah, well, that's bullshit. They come once they're committed to doing what you're doing. Once they understand what you're doing. So I dropped appointments. That was an experiment. I was gonna try it. Lots of things we did. We just tried them. I tried something else, because I noticed something. I had this friend in chiropractic, and he's still around, thank God, who knew chiropractic philosophy, 227% better than I ever did. But I also noticed that he restarted 80, 90, 100 old patients every week. Now, what that tells me is These people are stopping when they feel better, coming back when they need to feel better again. He's running a symptomatic practice. The old Reggie used to call it the practice with a bucket with a hole in it. But yet he had an understanding of chiropractic that was far better than most people I know. Why was that? So I tried doing what he does, a very fact-filled, educationally good, organized orientation. And what I found was I lost everybody. Within a couple of weeks, they were all gone. I was giving them all these wonderful innate intelligence and dis-ease and, you know, doing a whole philosophic routine, and boy, it was great. But it was being done in a very dry, boring manner, and that was his problem. He was not a speaker that spoke well. Instead of learning how to speak better, he decided the answer would be to make a video of him doing the same thing. Now that's even worse. Because friends, when a patient comes to see you, or a practice member, however you want to refer to them, they come to see you to see you. They bought you. I've had a lot of patients come out, I call them patients from time to time. I'm from the old school, you may have noticed. I've had dozens of patients over the years come out of the orientation and say, you know, I didn't understand most of what you said there, Doc. My orientation is simple enough for anybody to understand. I didn't understand what you said there. But you know, I like you, and I trust you. And if you buy it, I'm in. So personality does matter, and it matters that you get in there. So the whole educational approach had a certain drawback. It couldn't be pure education. You don't want a classroom. Think about it. When you got out of college, you said to yourself, way back in the little voice in the back of your head, I'm never sitting in a freaking classroom again. I don't care if I die. I'm not doing it. I'm done. Thank God I lived through it. I'm never doing it again. And that's what most people say, only they say it when they get out of middle school. And they drop out of school. So that approach didn't seem to work terribly well. I then saw other people who gave orientations that were closely akin to stand-up comedy. They told lots of jokes. They had lots of one-liners. Oh yeah, they mentioned the word innate intelligence and occasionally mentioned verbal subluxation, but never defined it. Never really said what it was. But they were funny. They were likable.